Have you ever felt that your backlog is stressing you out more than it should? The idea of backlogging gaming is keeping a tight collection of games you own and you plan on playing. Backlog can be seen in two ways: a list of games you need to play, which you can look at it as a to-do list which you have to follow, but that way can lead to stress and burnout, and it's making games feel like a job. Or my preferred way, a list of games you can play. With this approach to backlog is much more relaxed because you don't have an obligation to play games but a simple guideline if you're unsure of what to play. My goal is to help you feel less stressed and enjoy gaming a bit more, because games should be fun and you should not feel overwhelmed. And backlog can be a double-edged sword basically. It can help you stay organized, but it can also take the joy out of gaming. And in this video I'll talk about both the good and the bad sides of having a gaming backlog. Having a backlog means you will always have something to play. It's a list of games you own but you haven't finished, or ones you haven't played in a long time, which is actually great because it can keep you busy for months. It also helps keeping your games organized, and tracking your progress becomes much easier. I've watched a lot of videos about creating and finishing your gaming backlog, and the idea seems great. It makes sense to keep one, as it allows you to rediscover forgotten gems or find new ones you might enjoy. A backlog can also help you stay focused on one game or series at a time, making it easier to manage your free time without feeling overwhelmed. As I've mentioned earlier, a backlog can help you manage your free time, but it can also overwhelm you. There's too many choices, and having too many options can actually take away from the fun, making it harder to decide what to play. And focusing on one game at a time sounds great in theory, but what if you're just not in the mood for that game? Backlog can start feeling restrictive then, and makes you just feel guilty for switching to something else. And in reality, there's nothing wrong with taking a break or coming back to a game later at your own pace. The problem is that backlog can create this pressure to finish every game on the list rather than just enjoying them. And where's the joy in that? Because sometimes gaming is just about jumping into a game for a day or two, switching to something else and returning to whatever you feel like it. Like, backlog shouldn't take away from that freedom or taken away from the fun. Gaming starts feeling like chores instead of fun, and having too many options can lead to decision paralysis. And suddenly you're right back where you started, not knowing what to play. The backlog was supposed to help with that, but sometimes it just makes things worse. And gaming shouldn't feel like a checklist. Lists aren't fun, and restricting yourself in something meant to be enjoyable doesn't make sense. It takes away from the joy of spontaneous gaming and just picking up a random game and playing it for the fun of it. And that's why I stopped treating my backlog as a list of games I must play and started seeing it as a collection of suggestions for when I feel like playing. When I was forcing myself to grind through my backlog, I actually lost my passion for gaming. I felt burnt out and would rather do anything else instead. And you should always have freedom to play what you want at your own pace. A backlog should never stop you from enjoying yourself, and especially after a long day of work or school or whatever. I asked two of my friends to give me their opinion on gaming backlogs, and both of them shared similar thoughts on the topic. Like, for the positives, they said backlog is great for keeping track of games they want to experience. One of them enjoys setting goals each year, creating a list that includes new releases, older gems that they've never played, and even few replays of past favorites. And they found it satisfying to see a list of full completed checkmarks at the end of the year. And however, the downsides include feeling obligated to play everything on the list. One of them admitted to constantly swap around games, which causes the backlog to keep growing, with some games getting pushed further and further down. And my other friend pointed out that the real problem with backlog starts when you grow up. You have more responsibilities, less free time, and gaming becomes more about unwinding rather than completing a checklist. As a kid, you didn't have a backlog. Gaming was just fun with no pressure to play specific games, and now backlog can feel like a source of stress rather than enjoyment. Thinking back to when you were a kid and what made you fall in love with video games, like back then, you weren't worried about backlogs or unfinished games. You just played whatever looked fun. I remember having a lot of choices just like I do now, but instead of overthinking it, I just pop a disc into my PlayStation and I just dive in for hours, like finish game after game simply because I enjoy them. Like I finish more games than I do now. Like you don't need to finish every single game. There's no rush, like take your time. Right now I'm playing Persona 5, but it takes I take long breaks, sometimes months between sessions, and you know what? I still remember exactly where I left off and I'm enjoying it even more by playing at my own pace. And ironically, when I stopped caring about my backlog, I actually started finishing more games. Like this year, I finally played through the Metro series, which have been on my backlog for ages, but I also finished the first 3 Silent Hill games in Control, none of which were on my list. I also spent a lot of time playing Slay the Spire, and I never felt burned out because I played whatever I was in a mood for. And another thing that helped me break free from gaming fatigue was stepping out of my comfort zone, and recently I decided to give a Monster Hunter a try, and it was unlike anything else I've ever played. And who knows, you might discover a whole new genre or game you end up loving. And at the end of the day, gaming is fun. It's not a second job. Play what you want, and when you are not feeling it, don't force yourself. Some days I only play for an hour or two, way less than I used to, but it works for me. Maybe you'll find something that works for you. And that's pretty much it. That's all I wanted to talk about. Like, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on this topic. How you handle your gaming backlog, or do you even keep one? Like, let me know in the comments, and thank you for watching.